Hi, I'm Donny Pruitt, and you're watching Average Joe's Sports Talk. My name is Donny Pruitt. I'm the varsity boys basketball coach at Westbrook Christian School.
Coach, I appreciate you coming in for the interview. This is the interview you've been asked for. People have asked for this interview since Average Joe's has started. I've had people ask me, when are you going to get Coach Pruitt on? When are you going to get Coach Pruitt on? I was like, well, I'll get him on one day when he's retired. I said, I'll let him, when he's got time to do it. But the new recent news, you taking back the job at Westbrook. You've been retired since 2017, I believe.
Right.
But before we get into that and what led to all that, I want to always start interviews like this. Let's go back to the early days. Where were you born and raised, and what was that life like for you back then?
Oh, I was a good area. I was born and raised on Taylor Road in Glencoe, Alabama. Just right down from the elementary school. Went to school, Glencoe Elementary, Glencoe High School, graduated from Glencoe in 1973. Started out, I was going to be a pharmacist, and went to Gadsden State 2 years. I was in pharmacy school at Samford University, and I just kept feeling the pull back toward sports, toward teaching. I remember there was no show, Welcome Back Kotter used to come out. It was the first year it came on, and I'd sit there and watch that thing, and I would think, you know what? That would be nice, to do something like that. Go back to where you're from and be able to teach and be able to try to help kids and that kind of thing. And I enjoyed, the classes I was taking in pharmacy school. I enjoyed studying about drug actions and all that stuff. And finally, I realized that the Lord was moving me in that direction. So what happened was I went and talked to my parents about it, and I went back to Jacksonville State, got my undergraduate degree in biology and chemistry, and started out at DAR high school for 2 years. Came to Sardis 1 year, getting in the Etowah County system, and then I was at Glencoe for 22 years and coached there and all, and taught the advanced sciences. I was assistant principal, as well as the varsity boys basketball coach. Well, the assistant principal the last 3 years. But then what happened was I retired from Alabama public schools, drove to Georgia and back for 12 years, was 4 years at Cedartown High School, 8 years at Coosa High School there in West Rome. And my wife got tired of me getting up, having to get up 4 o'clock every morning. And Westbrook had talked to me a couple times about possibly coming back. So I came back. Initially, I told Miss Greer I wanted to just teach. I didn't want to coach any, because I'd had great kids at Glencoe. You couldn't have better kids, and I felt like I'd caught lightning in a bottle there anyway, because they worked so hard for me and did everything I ever asked them to do and then some. And I thought, well, I really don't want to get back in that again. But while I was teaching honors chemistry and honors human anatomy physiology and honors biology, which was essentially zoology. I started getting to know the kids, and I thought, doggone, these are the same kind of kids I had at Glencoe. Mm-hmm. And at that time, Coach Ford decided to go back to his alma mater at Asheville, and they came to me and asked me if I'd be interested in it. And I thought, why not? And so I coached them a couple of years. I had a situation come up where I was having to do an awful lot. At private schools, you have to wear a lot of different hats. And I'm the only kid, and my mother was going through some health issues, and I felt like the Lord was leading me to, try to get out of it. And turned out he was right, because my wife ended up getting non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and she was having to deal with cancer. And we had a lot of folks in my family died within about a year's time. There wasn't many of us left. So anyway, but then I started feeling the call to go back and coaching, and nothing really. I thought some things was going to happen a couple of years ago, and then nothing really happened. And I kind of just dismissed it, thought, well, I'm just going to be an old retired boy. And all of a sudden, Westbrook called me up and talked to me, and we prayed about it a lot. And so
there we go.
That's where I'm at.
During that time growing up in Glencoe, who was a big influence on your life? It could have been a coach, a parent, a family member. Who was somebody really stuck out?
Well, Glencoe was kind of like Mayberry back then. Everybody looked at it, and my parents' generation, you're talking about these guys that came back from World War II, and I mean, they had been on, at Normandy and fought in the Battle of the Bulge. I had so many role models that had a huge influence on me. But I guess the two biggest guys that had influence on me was a man named Dalton Bradley. He was my Little League baseball coach. He'll never know how much he, at a time when you're young and you don't have much confidence in yourself and all, he said, I think you can play. He gave me confidence. And then I was fortunate enough to have another coach, same way, coached me in junior high basketball, Jimmy Johnson. And he was the same way. He came in and said, you're my guy. I know you can play. And, at that age, when you're at young adolescent age, just, you're so messed up at that age. You don't feel good about yourself in any way. And to have an adult, somebody that's a coach, tell you that, hey, I think you can be good, made such a huge impact on me. But there were many others, but those were two of my coaches that had a huge impact on me.
When you were playing back in the day, was there a point where something kind of hit you that said, I think I can teach this game. I think I may become a coach one day?
Yeah, I love basketball. I was one of these. I know one time, I just always around basketball. If I wasn't at practice, I'd be out playing somewhere else. And I know one time they got to joking that we played Alexandria one night, and we had a big fight, and the joke was that I was on the other end of the gym shooting free throws. They said I was shooting free throws, and what was bad about it is a lot of people believed it, because they thought it was possible. While everybody else was fighting on one end, I shoot free throws on the other. But I just love, I love being around it, and the thing was one time I thought about going into coaching, and I never will forget my guidance counselor. I went in there, and I'd always liked math. And I said, and I mentioned to her, I said, I'm thinking about going into, I want to see what it's like maybe to coach and teach math. And she looked at me and she said, you don't want to do that. She said, you'll starve. And that was it. That was the end of the conversation.
That's awesome.
That was it. So that's why I went into pre-pharmacy and did pharmacy. But I always enjoyed, I helped Coach Tucker out, my high school basketball coach. I helped him out one year doing some coaching there at school. And I found really early that one of the things, and you know this, Bo, from playing, you miss the competition when you leave, because it's the intensity of playing the games, but you miss the relationships. Your teammates, being around those guys, and even guys you play ball against. You miss that. And I missed it. And I know when I came back and was helping Coach Tucker out that one year, I started getting close to the guys. And when I was in farm school, I'd come back and watch them play the next year, and I'd leave Birmingham and drive to the game. And as soon as I'd get there, all those old guys I'd coach, they'd come and, we'd sit around, we'd talk ball and everything. And you knew that was your niche. I mean, I started to feel it then, but I tried to push it out of my head. I mean, I kept trying to push it out of my head because I knew.
Got to finish the pharmacy.
That's it. I had to do that. If you're gonna get through pharmacy school, you got to be dedicated.
Better be.
But that just kept coming in my mind. I missed it. But now once I decided to go into it, you're talking about as far as knowing what. Fortunately, I had a good coach in high school, really good coach. He, the things that we did were very sound. He had played for Coach Holt, Walter Holt at Emma Sansom, and he'd been a point guard on that team where they finished second in the state his senior year. They'd gone to the state tournament his junior year, but he was very well versed in Coach Holt's whole system. Run the shuffle, run the weave, those kinds of things, and so when I finally decided I was going to go into coaching and all, what I would do is I like being around old people. I always did when I was a kid, going out with my granddad, and I love listening to old stories, them talking about World War I and all this. And I like being around old coaches. I used to go and watch Coach Mitchell up at Plainview and watch his teams play. They played really good sound man defense and did, ran motion offense, really good teams. And I would go up and watch Coach Corey Smith over at Asheville. Boy, as a player, he was the toughest team that we'd play against. His teams were so sound. And I got to know a lot of these guys later on. I ended up getting to know Coach Dusty Carter from up at Scottsboro. I think he won like 3 state championships. He was the father of fast break basketball in state Alabama. Well, he coached with a good friend of mine, Harold West from Skyline. I met him when I was at DAR. And, I would get to go and just meet those guys and sit down and talk basketball with them. And it was just so interesting being around those guys and watching how they did things and
pick up something from each one.
Oh, you better believe it. I mean, it was just so much knowledge that these guys had. And of course, I'd study these guys like Dean Smith and Bobby Knight and all these. I mean, I'd sit there and watch a ball game with a notepad trying to figure out what they were doing and trying to, I mean, a lot of the stuff we run is straight from, the North Carolina system and with a little touch of the old Indiana system.
Michelangelo and Bobby Knight, that's 2 of the best ever.
Yep.
Now, almost talk about Glencoe for a second.
Mm-hmm.
When you arrived at Glencoe,
yes,
you guys went on a tremendous run when you were there, which I actually played against you guys. I remember right in the middle of that run. Actually, it was just really getting kicked off by the time you wore us out. But during that time you were on that run there at Glencoe, was there a point where you realized, hey, man, these guys are coachable, they're putting in the work, I think we got something special here?
Well, I think what happened with me at Glencoe, I played at Glencoe, and I had grown up there, and I'd seen Glencoe play really good basketball. If you go back into the 50s and 60s, and I played, in the early 70s, if you were going to go to the state tournament, or if you was going to win the county tournament, you had to beat Glencoe. That's what the road ran right through Glencoe. And, I can remember, as a 5th grader and 6th grader going and watching, Glencoe play. And when Coach Gidrill was there, who later went to Gadsden High and then was later at Etowah and then Snead State. But I'd study everything they did, and it was just such an exciting time. Well, what happened was when I came back to Glencoe, people, I don't know. It's just there was a lot of that. It came from a lot from the parents. They'd say, "Glencoe just can't win in basketball." And we'd have some good teams. We had some pretty good teams there in the mid '80s, but they just keep saying, "Well, Glencoe can't win." Glencoe, and to be honest with you, that kind of hurt me because when you say Glencoe can't win, you're saying that I can't win, because I was from there. I played there, and I knew we could. The thing that Glencoe had that I felt like that was important with the kids that we had at that time, they reminded me of the Alexandria kids. Mm-hmm. They hated losing, and they were competitive, and they would work their tail off. Now, we didn't have the tallest kids, and we didn't have the fastest kids. We might not jump quite as high, but, I had kids that would, they'd get after you, and they played really hard, and they'd do everything else, and they played they were very smart kids. And so what happened was that bothered me. And when I had the opportunity to get the varsity boys job at Glencoe, I felt like instead of us talking about what we didn't have, let's look at what we do have and let's develop it. Everybody's talking about, at that time we only had that one little old gym out there, and everybody talking about, well, this is such a bad, everybody hated, didn't want to play there, all our guys. And I told our guys, I said, if you think you don't like playing here, it's like being another team. When you get this gym packed, I said, I've played here when it's like this. You get this gym packed, they don't want any part of it. And all of a sudden, our guys started taking pride in that thing. We won at one time 31 straight games on that home floor.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we did really well. I know one night I laughed when we got the new gym built. I think it was playing Southside. And we were rolling the bleachers out, and some of the rollers jumped off the tracks. And our guys got so excited because they said, if we can't get the bleachers out, we're going to get to play in the old gym. We had gone 180 degrees because they thought, that's our 6th man right over there. We get you in that old gym, you in trouble and all. Because that's where you played at, and all. So it was different. They had to have a change in the mindset. But our guys, they dove into it, and they worked very hard. They worked very hard at it.
When we interviewed Reginald Huff, and I know you said you seen that interview, and we asked him about you guys' rivalry back then. That was a war. It was a chess match. It's 2 completely different styles, but both of you had success against one another. But talk about those rivalries in Litchfield back then.
Well, Litchfield, every year, it was a 2-edged sword. On the one side, you knew when you played Litchfield, you was going to be playing probably the most talented team in the state. In their 3A is what it was when we were playing. It was just incredible. They'd go out there and, run a 6'7" and 6'6" up there at the post positions, and you'd think, okay, we'll get one in foul trouble, and he'd go off and they'd run another 6'7" or a 6'8" out there. And you look down there, and the talent level they had was just incredible. And, on the one side, I hated playing Litchfield. But on the other side, they made us a lot better
Yeah.
Because every year, I know I tell our guys whenever we play them the first ball game, I'd say, this is the most talented team there. We're fixed to see the measuring bar where we've got to be if we're wanting to go to the Final Four, if we're wanting to be, be what we say we want to be, and that's be good enough to play for a state championship. And you'd find out real quick. I mean, they had so much talent. And you're right. The games that we play from a fan standpoint, I mean, I'll run into people all the time, people I don't even know, and they'll say, boy, I wish I could go back one more time and see one of those ball games. And from a fan standpoint, it was great.
Oh, yeah.
From my standpoint down there, I mean, you sweating blood on that sideline because they were always just back and forth. And with Litchfield, with our guys, we had to play hard. We had to play smart. You just could not have a mental let up, because if you did, if you broke down mentally, all of a sudden you just went and gave up 10, 12 points. I mean, they're getting that diamond press or getting that 1-3-1 half court trap, and I mean they'll take it from you, and they'd be trapping you with a 6'7" and a 6'3" or 6'4",
and they can run like your guards.
Oh, they could go. I remember one night, old Nick Coffin, he was a sophomore, and they trapped him in the corner. We was playing for the area championship, and when they had finished second in the state the year before, missed an open layup, or they'd been state champions. And Nick, like I say, he's about 5'8" or 5'9", sophomore, and he's up there. And he skips across half court, and they come in on that trap on him, and he couldn't even see. And finally, I'll never forget it. He went down low and actually went between David Kyle's legs while he was up in there and made the pass. I mean, that's the only place he could see. He went and did this and got him to jump, and he went down and literally went up underneath his legs and made the pass, but they were just so much bigger than us. Yeah. But, yeah, we had some probably the best way they describe it, we had some wars with them.
Oh, yeah. No doubt. I grew up, I don't know if you know this or not, but Jason Presley and I grew up together.
Oh, okay.
Jason was a little older than me, but Jason kind of mentored me in basketball. That's how I became the basketball player I was. And I remember when Jason got the job at Gaston, he called me one day after he played you. And I'll never forget it. He called me. He said, "Hey, man, this dude's incredible." He said, "I'm going back and watch the film." And he said, "Remember Kerry Majors?"
Oh, yeah.
He said, "This guy," he said, "I ain't never seen nothing like it." He said, "He doubled Kerry from 4 different guys on 4 different possessions down the floor. And you didn't even know he was over there coaching. It was just ingrained in him." He said, once I seen that, he said, I knew I had to go back to the drawing board. I had a lot of work to do if I'm going to kind of compete with this guy and guys like him around the state.
Well, that's because Kerry Major was a really good basketball player. If you just sit down and played him straight, he was going to make life hard on you. So, yeah, Jason's a really good basketball coach. I'm glad he's got the job out at Oaks Bluff. He needed to been head coach for a while. And, after he left Geraldine, he just, he was Gaston with Geraldine, and I hate to see him not being the coach because he does a good job.
Yeah, he does. He does.
And a good guy.
He was a heck of a player growing up, and he taught me. I mean, he basically taught me. Me and him would go to the Willie Carnes Rec Center,
right? And
we'd be over there for hours. And I was in he'd bring me over there when I was in 8th grade. We're playing these college guys,
right?
Little James and him. I want to change gears for a minute, Coach. What does it take to be a player in your system? Something that, hey, you have to do this if you're going to be part of my program, from a player standpoint.
I always tell our guys, we can't control how tall we are. We improve quickness a little bit, but, you're pretty much locked into some things. But anybody can play hard and anybody can play smart. I mean, and you can work hard. I mean, that's things that you can do. And I don't tolerate laziness very well. I just don't do it. I don't tolerate just being lazy or being selfish. I mean, those are things you can control, and that's what we try to keep things simple. Okay, I remember Wimp Sanderson going to a coaching clinic one time, and it was a little small clinic they used to have down at Montevallo that I wish it was still there because you didn't have that many coaches. But he made a comment. He said we run a KISS system. Keep it simple and sound. He said, I'm going to draw up some stuff here on our offenses. He said, you can go to any junior high game and see these same offenses being ran. He said, there's nothing magical about it. He said, we keep it simple. We're going to be sound, but we're going to get after your tail. He said, the most important thing I ever learned, He said about basketball, he said, wasn't at a clinic, wasn't on the basketball floor. He said it was at Florence State University, which is now the University of North Alabama. That's where he played ball at. And his first assistant coaching job was there. He said, I took an educational psychology class. And he said, in this ed psych class, he said, the professor said, the more you give people to think about, he said, the less aggressive they are in terms of attacking the task. He said, the less they have to think about, the more aggressive they're going to be. He said, what we're going to do, we're going to keep it simple. But he said, we're going to get after your tail. And he used to, another statement, and I make this to my players all the time. He said, because everything starts with effort. Everything starts with effort. He said, it doesn't matter, if you are, he said, it don't matter what kind of offense you run or defense you run. If you don't have effort, it's going to look terrible. He said, you can take something that's, maybe not even that good. He said, but if everybody's busting their tail and they're giving effort, you can do it. So that's my thing, I guess. I want everybody playing hard. I want you playing as smart as you can. And I don't want you to be lazy. I want you to take pride in what you're doing and work at it. I don't tolerate laziness or selfishness very well.
I know some football coaches that have that same mentality about keeping it simple too.
Right.
Did he have on the plaid jacket when he was there talking about
Actually, the day he was there, what happened was he actually sat beside me before he went down to speak. And I was a young guy. I'd been coaching about 3 or 4 years at that time. And he was very personal, but he on a golf shirt. He's fixing to go to the golf course. When he got through speaking, he was going somewhere out there to play golf. He loved golf. He talked about that a lot.
That's awesome. Coach, do you hate to lose more or love the wins more?
I love the wins, but I hate the losses. The losses, I remember one time Coach Bryant, when he was at Alabama, after he won his 315th, and they asked, to become the all-time winningest coach in college football, and they asked him, they said, which of those 315 wins do you remember the most? And he said, well, I'm not sure. He said, but I can tell you, I can remember every one of the, 80-something losses I ever had. I think the losses stay with you a lot longer. But of course I say that I had a group of boys that I coached in my last team at Glencoe. And we got a group text when it came out in the paper that I'd gotten this job. And I enjoyed it so much. There's about 7 or 8 of them, I guess it was. It was on this thing, texting, but we were going back and forth and got to talking about certain wins we had that year. And it brought back a lot of good memories. Awesome. It really is. And it's fun to get with the old guys that you've had and talk about this night when this happened. It's funny when you get your old guys together, you talk about the wins. But when you're by yourself, you think about the losses. They're the way, because you can't talk about the losses without. If you start to talk about those, all of a sudden the conversation when you got all your old players, you're sitting there talking. When the loss comes up, you say a couple of things and it gets really quiet because it still hurts.
Still stings.
It still hurts, and it may be 20 years ago, it may have been 40 years ago, but it still hurts. So you end up, like I say, when you get together as a group, you talk about the wins, but when you by yourself, you talk about the losses.
That makes a lot of sense.
Think about the losses.
What is one of those losses that really just makes you want to throw up? To this day, it just really.
Oh, I've got quite a few. I do, really. The last game I coached at Westbrook was hard.
That was in Jacksonville, wasn't it?
Yeah. I didn't realize it, but those boys, it was a great bunch of kids. It was a great, great bunch of kids. And they every year at Christmas, about over half of them, or maybe more, well over half, they'll send me a text, Merry Christmas, Coach, and text me on my birthday, and just, they're still very close to me. And I didn't realize it, though, that, our guys, we had played so well against Section the game before, and we didn't, and against Lafayette, we didn't play bad. We out-rebounded them 20 rebounds. If you told me for a game, you're going to out-rebound them by 20 rebounds, you're only going to turn the ball over. I think Will Jones didn't have a single turnover. We had I think 7 for the game. If you told me all these things, that Booby Whitlow that played at Auburn and foot running back. He averaged like 27 a game. If you told me that he was only going to score like 7 points, John Hilliard, Canizero, shut him out. He didn't score against him. If you told me all that was going to happen, I'd said, hey, let's get ready for the net. But the thing that happened was we couldn't have thrown a rock in the ocean if we'd been standing on the beach. I mean, it wasn't because we weren't trying, and our guys played so hard. But I didn't know this. They had their goal. They never told me this and all, but they said their goal. They knew I'd gotten close a few times on state championships, but they wanted to win a state championship for me.
Yeah, makes sense.
No doubt. Of course, I would want it for them. But that's the kind of kids they were. They thought about me first. And when the game was over, it was one of the hardest dressing rooms I ever went in. I started trying to talk to them, and we all just ended up sitting down there and just crying and hugging each other's neck. It was awful night. Yeah. 96 against Litchfield in the region finals. Yeah. I didn't sleep for I don't know how long, and I've watched the game one time since, and I can't watch it. Yeah. There's certain ones. 2000 in the state finals against Central Coosa, they had a really, really good team. We gave a 3-up to start the game. We scored the next 2 trips, and the next time that Central Coosa gets a lead, it's with 3.1 seconds left in the game. Justin Tuck, that played with the New York Giants, later on played at Notre Dame, New York Giants, he got a rebound, stuck it in on us with 3.1 seconds left. And, there's some of them like that. I go back and,
some rough ones.
Yeah.
Let's flip it around. What's some of the wins that really just,
oh gosh,
this is amazing, man. I can't believe this is really happening.
Was a bunch of them. Again, I'm very fortunate, I guess. When we beat Southside, we had played them twice already for the county championship in 1995, and we had a rough night. We turned the ball over, but we kept sculling around, and I think we were down 4 points with 15 seconds to go in the game, and we ended up scoring. We got the ball inside Jeremy King, and he scored. And we called timeout, my last timeout, and so we're down 2, and we kind of went to a gamble type press, and they threw it away, and we had a little inbounds play we worked on for that kind of situation, and we got to Jeremy again, and he missed it, but old Drew Gregory was on the weak side. He got the offensive board, stuck it in. We went overtime and we won. And that was huge because everybody had told us we had a really good group the previous year, and they had all told us when those guys graduate, you ain't gonna win any more ball games. And that was a big thing for those boys to do that. And they were a great bunch of kids. Remember that one really well. Beating Litchfield for the area championship in 97 was huge. Nobody gave us a chance on that one. Unfortunately, we had to play them 9 days later for the region championship. They got us over there to go to the Final Four.
Roger played with them.
Yep, that's right. Roger was a senior that year. Sure was. That was big. We went up to North Sand Mountain, and I think they were ranked second in the state, and they had only lost 1 game in 3 years up there. That was my last year at Glencoe, and that was the one we was talking about the ball game on when I was having the group text message. And we went up, and it was just a wild game. We had them. We jumped out on. We was up. I think it was 42-24 at the half, and they actually nearly caught us by the end of the third quarter. Wow. We turned it over like 5 times in a row, and they're laying it in, and they got up by about, I think they got up like 5 points on us in the fourth quarter, and they had a 6'8" kid, and we got him, he fouled out, and all of a sudden I had the same boy that was able to draw the foul there. He comes down and he's hit about 2 threes all year, and he comes down. I can see in his eyes. He's going to put it. I'm going like, no. And boy, Andy hits that thing. The net doesn't even move. When it goes through, that tied us up. We end up winning by 5. That was a big night. There's a bunch I could just go through. The county finals in 2000, we were down. Oh gosh, we stayed down 10. It seems like the whole time, and I put my bench in to start fouling. and the Rascals came in, started stealing the ball, started hitting threes, and next thing I know, they pulled us back close, and we ended up beating them by 3, beating Host Bluff. But there was just, I've been fortunate.
Man, how many of those counties did you win in a row?
We won 8 in a row. We won 8 in a row, and then South had a really good group. They beat us there in 2001, but 2002, we played them, and I hardly ever played zone. We went zone because I had watched Greg Watkins at Hope Bluff play the game before, and Southside had a hard time against the zone. And so I thought, well, we'll try and do it. We'd split with them during the regular season and went to the zone, and we're up like 10 at halftime and felt pretty good. And they brought in this little boy, and I usually scout pretty good. Had this little boy, he looked like the water boy. He came in the ball game, didn't even know. I knew his name, and that was it. I never had seen him play. I watched him shooting warm-ups. That was it. And that little rascal came in there and hit 4 threes on us. And all of a sudden, we ended up losing the ball game. That was a tough one. But, yeah, we could have had 9 and 10 years, but we had 8 in a row.
That's awesome.
Had 8 area championships in a row too.
That is amazing. That's consistency there, no matter who's playing. Let's change gears another time here, Coach. What music's playing in your car on a normal day when you're headed to work or home or whatever?
What am I? I'm an oldie goldie. That's what.
Are you?
So I'm listening to the '60s on Sirius radio, and sometimes the '70s. I'm an oldie goldie.
You like Creedence, people like that?
Oh, I like Creedence. I like I go back to the '60s, '70s. I love that stuff.
I got you. Let's see here. Now, over the years, who is a coach that you faced that you were like, man, this guy right here is just unbelievable? Kind of like how Jason did when you coached against him, and it just made you kind of self-reflect, and you think, man, this guy right here is he gets it done like I've not ever seen before.
Boy, that's hard to say. There's a bunch of them I coached against that were that way. Mm-hmm. Neil Thrasher just won the state championship fight. Neil's a really good sound coach, does a really good job. Larry again at Alexandria, his kids would just play. They would just lay their guts out there. Alexandria, like I say, I was talking about how their kids, I always felt like Glencoe kids were like them. You could not just get on top of Alexandria and get a nice 10-point lead and know that's going to roll. You had to, you get them down, they come back. You get them down, they come back. That's it. If you, like you said, if you shot them and you saw the slightest bit of breath, they kind of like the old Jack Byer. If you ever watched those 21, they'd be back up and going again. But that, his kids played so hard too. But that is really hard to say. Coach Mitchell up at Plainview, his kids played really well. Wow.
I got a pretty good coach there now.
Yeah. Well, Coach Mitchell was just so sound in what he did, everything he did. But, boy, that's a hard one. I had to sit down and think about it because, I've coached against Tommy Lewis that was at Spring Garden, later center. His teams were always so sound in what they did. Boy. I mean, it's funny. I never have even really sat down and thought about that. Yeah. But there's, I've gone up against a lot of really good coaches.
I like that. Ask that question because, a lot of times people are like, kind of takes them off guard. Like,
yeah. Well, you know who all's out there that's well coached, but to sit down and say, okay, this one's the best. That's really difficult to do because. A lot of times you got to look at the talent levels they work with. Some people have more talent than others, but I've seen a lot of coaches that maybe not had quite as much talent, but boy, their kids are well coached and disciplined in what they do.
This is going to be a funny question here. Okay. Let's see if you can remember this one. Coach, give me a time where you've lost your mind in a game, whether it be from a turnover or something, a player doing something crazy, or on a referee or something.
Yeah, well. I have not gotten a lot of technicals. I got one technical in 14 years of coaching varsity boys basketball.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I only had one. And the guy that got me.
You must be doing yoga or something.
Well, the guy that got me, doggone, what happened was playing Scottsboro, was playing the consolation game at noon on New Year's Eve, if I remember right. Nobody's in that gym. I mean, you could bounce a ball, and it just echoes. And old Z.C. Sparks was calling the Mountain Valley up there. I'm over on the sideline, and we're playing U Hope, and U Hope is trapping us all over the place, and they are just beating us to death out there. You know, and it's 1-3-1 half-court trap. They had a big old long-arm rascal out there on the point, and they nailed our kid and knocked him out of bounds. And this has been going on the whole game, and I didn't say anything. I turned around, and as I walked back to the beach, I said, "That guy's killing us," and that was it. So he pirouetted around and teed me. That was my one tee I got right there.
In all those years.
In all those years. But, yeah, probably it was a junior high game, one I just lost my mind on one night because I guess it was just we were playing for the county championship, and we were playing West End. And part of it I was wired before I got in there because we had beaten them really bad. And old Red Rowan was coaching out there, and he did a really good job with those kids in junior high out there back in the 80s or early 80s and all, early to mid 80s. And what happened, we had beaten them. One time we beat them like about 30 points, another time like 40-something points. But I knew he had a pretty good bunch. He only had 5 players. He had no bench. And anyway, we go in there, and we're playing at Sardis for the county tournament, that old gym. And we go in, and our guys, I kept trying to say, guys, you got to understand, they are going to be better than what we've seen. They're playing well right now. You know, they are playing well. And you can look at your guys' eyes sometimes.
They didn't believe you.
No. Sometimes before you go to the game and you try to tell your kids that, and they want to believe you, but deep down inside they're going like, Coach is just trying to push our buttons to get us up. Well, we went in there, and I mean, the first half, it was just back and forth. And the officials we had, we drove baseline one time, and this kid hits my boy and literally knocks him over towards the stage there in the old gym. And the boy just throws up a shot left-handed. I mean, and it bounces around and goes in, but the ref doesn't call anything. And I said, "Man, you got to call that." He said, "Coach, you made the basket. What you worried about?" Well, I knew. Oh, this old boy, Fred Cochran, we had to get some fouls on him because they had nobody come in. Well, what happened, this thing, I was already irritated because my guys weren't ready, and we're not playing just really well. I remember old Scott Heisman hit a shot right at the horn, and we're up 3. And I go in there, and I chewed all over our guys. I had one boy that just wasn't playing hard, and I loved him to death, but I got in his drill pretty good. Anyway, I go out the second half, and we start playing, and the kid I got in his drill, boy, he took over out there. I mean, he started playing really well. Well, anyway, we stretched this thing back out, and I think it was a 10-point lead we had going into the fourth quarter. But what happened was right at the end of the third quarter, a guy shoots a shot, and the horn goes off. And my kid did go over the back for the rebound, but the horn's already off. Well, the guy's coming over the sideline. He's calling a foul. I said, "Sir," I said, "if you will check with the other outside official," I said, "I think he'll tell you that the horn went off, before, he went on the back." And I said, "I know he went on the back, but I think you'll find out." And he turned around, he said, "Coach, if you don't sit down and shut up," he said, "I'm going to tell you up." I said, "Could you just please check with him?" And so he teed me. And when he did, I snapped. I mean, I just went crazy. I thought, I'm going to get my money's worth now.
Yeah.
And I went nuts.
Me cashing my check.
And to be honest with you, I went back, and they went out and hit the 2 free throws and all, or it was 1-1, they hit both of them. And I went back to the sideline, and I think finally, at that point in time, my kids thought, this man's going crazy. I mean, and so I think they played hard. Either I woke them up or they played out of fear. I don't know which one, but that was the one time I can look that. And there was one other situation I can look back and say, yep, that's a time I lost my cool and lost my mind. The other one, I was coaching girls basketball at Glencoe, and we were playing Hope's Bluff. And they had Cassie Duncan and all that crew. Well, they were really good. But my group wasn't bad, and we were playing them. And Cassie had a really good reputation because she'd score like 45 the year before in the state tournament. Man. Well, we came down the floor, and I mean, they were playing really physical, and they were putting hands all over us and all this stuff. Well, I'd been getting on officials about it a lot anyway. Well, finally, I mean, it just got ridiculous. And one time, what happened was, the point guard was going down the floor dribbling, and Cassie comes over, and I mean, literally, you can hear the splat and watch the girl's arm go straight down. The ball's going loose, and my girl goes over to get it, and Cassie going with 2 hands, it just pushes her, and Anna just throws it up in the air, and they get it, here they come, and they ain't no call. And I thought,
Man.
that's it. I went
Check
after
in,
him. I went
clock in.
after him. I didn't even care at that time. And the thing about it was, from that point in time on, it got us pumped up. And I told him, I said, I don't care what you do. I said, we are not going. We're going to go in and we're going to out hustle them. We're going to be meaner. We're going more physical. And they did. I mean, we got in there and got down and dirty. And I think the officials realized they were going. But that was the two times I kind of lost my mind. You know.
I love it, man. Let me ask you this. This is an interesting question here. As the game has changed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even since I played, and you know, it's more of an open court concept in a lot of places now, with more guards on the floor, and, you know, a lot more full court basketball now. I think it's kind of from the European influence over the years, personally, but people have their different opinions. What's some of the things that you like about the new way the game's played, and some of the things that you like? I can't really get on board with that.
I think, you know, one of the things I learned early watching coaches and all, there's a lot of different ways to achieve success. And the thing is, the way the game's been played, I think one of the things that's happened a lot is the way the game's being officiated. You know, you watch this NCAA tournament right now, my goodness. I mean, they are just letting people beat each other to death inside. You know, they've gone to the thing, well, they've done this for a while, but for a long time, you know, you could hand check a lot. Well, now, you know, if you touch twice, that's a foul. You know, if you use the arm bar and you extend, that's a foul. But out there in the oak floor, if you put two hands, that's a foul. And so you get quick things there, but away from the ball, it's gotten very physical. I think because of the thing with the hands, if you put a hand on somebody twice or put two hands on, it being a foul, what that's done is that has caused people to want to spread more, try to use the dribble drive because they can get fouls that way. Whereas if you throw the ball inside, they've let it get a lot more physical down there in the post, and I think that's changed it. Now, me personally, I still think, you know, I look at teams, when you're constantly trying to just shoot threes and use dribble drive, you have ups and you have downs. When it's like with the University of Alabama, when you see them play like an LSU and they have 23 threes, I mean, they're just throwing them in from everywhere. You look like $1 million. But I've seen a lot of teams when they depend on, they're using the three so much, then when it's not going, what have you got to hang your hat on? Yeah, you better be able to play defense. You better be able to get to that offensive board. And so the game has changed, but in one sense. But to me, if you get right down to it, the game's still predicated. You still control it by doing the same basic things. You know, defensively, offensively, you still, you know, if they extend on you, you got to be able to go inside. You know, you got to have that balance between inside and outside, in my opinion. If you just depend on, if you become one-dimensional like that, anybody can defend you.
That's right.
You know, again, on the nights you're on, okay, yeah, you'll win. But that, in my opinion, you still have to be balanced.
I agree with
in
that.
what you're doing.
Like in football, I think you got to be balanced.
Yeah.
Unless you're extremely good at one.
Right.
There wouldn't be no denying. Coach, I want to ask you a couple more questions. What do you think kind of led you into coming back? I know you said you prayed about it and things like that. Was there a point where you was getting that fire under you?
Yeah, well, what happened was, I guess, you know, like I told you, when I gave it up, we had a lot of, I had a lot of family problems in terms of health, and all of a sudden, like I say, my wife got to doing better. My mother died. My mother-in-law died. My sister-in-law died. All of our aunts and uncles died. It was just, but after I got through with it, I've always enjoyed being around the game. I've enjoyed being around. I enjoyed the boys, just that relationship. And like I say, I try to keep myself open to what the Lord's wanting me to do. And I just started feeling about 2 years ago, and I started feeling like maybe He wanted me to do that. And so I prayed about it a lot, and I had a couple things I thought was going to open up, but it didn't happen. I thought, well, I just read it wrong. You know, the Lord doesn't want me to do this, and I'm just going to be permanently retired. And so I just left it at that. But I still, you know, there was one thing in particular I thought this might be it. I might be moving back into it, but it didn't happen. And so, like I say, when Ms. Greer got in touch with me on this, me and my wife talked about it. I don't know. I just felt like the Lord, maybe He wanted me to come do something one more time. I miss the thing of being able to work with kids and work with, I just love that relationship. And a lot of times, one of the things that I miss the most is at the age where you're working with these guys. A lot of times, they won't listen to mom and daddy. They won't listen to the preacher. They won't listen to anybody.
That's true.
They'll listen to their coach.
That is true.
And a lot of times you can make a difference in their lives when they just, they listen to their peers and they'll listen to their coach.
That's true.
And so, I miss that because I felt like hopefully I've helped some guys over the years, and I miss that.
Let me ask you a question. We'll close on this one right here. When you do hang it up for the final time, who knows? That could be 10, 15 years. Who knows? You never know. To me, when you do things like you do, like coaching, to me, it keeps your mind sharp. It keeps you dialed in. It keeps you, make you feel like, hey, I got to work. I've got a task. Danny Horn said it best. He's like, and Danny Horn, when we interviewed him, he said, I said, Coach, when do you think you might want to retire? He said, why? Yeah, he said, I couldn't imagine me not coaching. He said, I can't do anything. He's like, I can't build a house. I ain't no good at golf. He said, if I just couldn't just go sit down. He said, this is my hobby. Mm-hmm. I got to be around. This is who I am.
Right.
So to me, it keeps you sharp, keeps you young, keeps your mind going. All those are good for me. But when you do retire and you step away from the game, what do you hope they remember Donny Pruitt as or by?
I guess I just hope that they know I did my best, and I did my best. And that's always been my goal, is do my best and do things the right way.
There we go.
And that's it. You just kind of trust the Lord on what you're doing. You're going to guide your path, but you want to do your best and everything that you do, and do it the right way. And I guess hopefully it's that.
There we go. Coach, it's been an honor to finally get you in here.
Well, I appreciate it.
The good thing is, we're going to be heavy in basketball coverage, so we'll be seeing you very soon. But right. I want to catch everybody from not only Westbrook, people throughout your life that's kind of watched your coach. I know a bunch of coaches that's asked me about it, so they're going to be watching this too. Coach, I appreciate you so much.
Well, thank you, Bo. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your
time. Okay.